is the draw card. Did they get removal? A Merfolk Windropper. I'm going to take that as a no. Alright, we have now some very good options available to us here. The opponent is now down to 6 life. They're going to have to make some calculated choices here, as we're going to hit them for 5 to the face. Are they going to take care of Ishin? They're leaving Ishin be. Oh, there goes the Silver Fur, though. That's going to be awesome for us. Hello and welcome to the Florida Men Gaming. My name is Furion and today we're going to be playing Magic the Gathering Arena. But before we get started, I'd like to ask that you please like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment down below, let us know what you like, what you'd like us to change, if you'd like to see something that you want us to try on this channel. And if you're over on Rumble, go ahead and hit that Rumble button. We would love your support. For today's video, we're going to be playing a Mardu dungeon delving mechanic deck, which was originally created by JayVillainMTG. We have called it Villainous in his honor, and the only changes we made, this is just a straight net deck, except for we didn't have all of the pathways that he had put in his original brew. So instead of using wild cards on 3 Blightstep pathways, we have replaced those 3 cards with 3 Haunted Ridges. The Haunted Ridges, of course, give you both black and red mana, making it less of a choice and more of an awesome option. Normally, I prefer the series of lands that came out in the Innistrad set, but the reason I'm not running the full package of all the different color variants is you do run the risk that you draw all of them too early, and then you end up with too many tapped lands leading off your run, which can really slow down your play. So I've elected to go with mostly pathways, mirroring his original brew, and then giving ourselves, where we had the gap, that fill-in. This deck is an incredible deck, works off of a couple of really interesting and awesome mechanics. So we're going to break down the deck for you, and in the description below there will be a link to his original video. If you look at his community posts, if you link over to his channel, he had an incredible run with this deck, at one point going, I believe, 9-0, had a 14-win run at some point if I'm not mistaken. But essentially this deck has a couple of key things we're going to play off of. First one is the Reaper's Talisman. This is a 1 black card. We're running 3 of them, and this is an incredible card. Whenever an equipped creature attacks, it gains Death Touch until the end of turn. Now, if this equipped creature attacks alone, the defending player loses 2 life, and you gain 2 life. So you put it down on turn 1, you equip it on turn 3 after you get a 2-power creature down on the board, and you are rolling. We're running 4 copies of the Selfless Samurai. This is a Kamigawa uncommon. Whenever a samurai or warrior you control attacks alone, it gains lifelink until the end of turn. Then, you can choose to sacrifice this card, and another target creature you control gains indestructible until the end of turn. No mana cost to do that, so this is just like the Selfless Savior from the previous rotation. Works very well. It's a little more expensive, but it has some cool upside that the Selfless Savior didn't have when it comes to adding a lifelink option for warriors and samurai, and some really cool things there. 3 copies of Infernal Grasp, a really solid removal spell, especially if you're trying to target creatures because it's not limited like things like Power Word Kill. 2 copies of the Falconwrath Perforator. Now, if I were to make any changes in future iterations of this deck, this card, I think I landed it one time, used it as a chump blocker, and never really had to go back to it again. Didn't see it much, so I might rotate that in favor of something else. What that something else is, you ask? I don't know. But you know, I wanted to stay true to the original brew as he had so much success with it, especially through Platinum, and since we're stuck in Platinum, I figured, you know what, he's got a Platinum Buster deck, we're going to roll with it. 4 copies of the Triumphant Adventurer. Now, we are running this deck not in Alchemy, which may have already been one of our first mistakes. I think he may have run his original brew in Alchemy, but in Alchemy, these cards all got a massive upgrade. We're choosing to run it today in Standard, and it still performed remarkably well in Standard. So this Triumphant Adventurer, the Standard version, is a 1/1, gains first strike when it is your turn to attack, has Death Touch, so if you aren't familiar, a first striking Death Toucher will tap 1 damage. So if you have 2 counters on it, it takes 3 blockers to stop it because it will instantly kill 2 creatures that they've put up in front of you. When you attack, you venture into the dungeons. I'm not going to break down the dungeon delving mechanic. Hopefully you already know what that does. And we're going to keep on down the line. 2 copies of Nadar, the Selfless Paladin. This card is spectacular. It is, as JayVillain has put it, one of the most underrated cards that came out of the Adventures in the Forgotten Realms set. It is a vigilant 3/3 legendary creature Dragon Knight. Whenever Nadar attacks, you venture into a dungeon, and once you've completed a dungeon, all creatures on the board except for Nadar get +1/+1. Fantastic card, really great if you're taking advantage of the dungeon mechanic. Now, again, we're only taking advantage of it on 2 cards, but it actually has been working out very well. 4 copies of the Graveyard Trespasser. This is a favorite of JayVillain's, and I'm not going to lie, she's one of my favorites too. It was one of the first cards I really tried to get to, and when I had wild cards available, crafted for her. She's a human werewolf. When you attack her, she has a ward, which causes you to discard a card. So if you're playing and it's mid to late game, the opponent's down to 1 card in hand, they've got removal, they think they've got that in hand, its ward will stop that from going through. Whenever this card enters the battlefield or attacks, you can exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard. If it's a creature card, then each opponent loses 1 life and gains 1 life. Now, on the knight side, you can do that for 2 cards, and they lose a life and you gain a life for each card that goes with. This card is spectacular. Really works well, and something to remember, if you're playing this card for the first time, you don't have to just take from their graveyard, you can take from your own, and while that might be counterintuitive, its little life pings go a long way. This next card is a very interesting one, worth taking another look at, especially across other mechanics. Ishin, 2 Heavens as 1. This is a Kamigawa rare, legendary creature human samurai. If a creature attacking causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. Can someone say 2 dungeon triggers on each attack from a Triumphant Adventurer or Nadar Selfless Paladin? Or can someone say double Graveyard Assault from the Graveyard Trespasser? This card really maximizes the effects that you have at play. If you look at the board, you also see the Goldspan Dragon. That produced double treasures. So just overall, spectacular card, really does a great job. 3 copies of Kick in the Door. This is a 1 red mana sorcery card. You put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. That creature gains haste until end of turn, can't be blocked by walls, and you venture into the dungeon when you play that card. Again, just continuing to play off that dungeon mechanic, continuing to boost the Adventurer. The Adventurer with counters is terrifying, as board states can get wide, but if you have as many counters as they have creatures, they can't stop it. So most times this creature will continue to get through unblocked. 4 copies of Angel Fire Ignition. Put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature. It gains Vigilance, Trample, Lifelink, Indestructible, and Haste until the end of turn. Again, this card I really love to boost with the Triumphant Adventurer. Really allows that card to swing home unopposed, and even if they do try and oppose it with the Trample, what happens, 1 blocker gets in front of it, you would think, oh, first strike, but it's going to get stopped. No, it puts 1 tick of damage on the blocker, and then the rest of the damage it applies to the opponent's face. So it has Trample, and you have to block it with as many creatures as it has damage, or it will get through. Ryu the Storm's Edge. This is an interesting card. First strike, whenever a samurai or warrior you control attacks alone, untap it. If it's the first combat phase of the turn, there is an additional combat phase after this phase. Played this card, wanted to try something that I didn't remember from watching the previous video that was created by JayVillain. It does not trigger off of the Triumphant Adventurer or Nadar, as they are both classified as knights. So I was hoping that that would be a backdoor trigger. That is not the case. And then 4 copies of the Goldspan Dragon. If you don't know, you don't know, and I can't teach you with what this card does. Monster card. I'm excited to get into the gameplay and show you what this deck has got. It performs as advertised. If you're looking for a deck, if you've got a lot of these cards from previous sets already built, it takes minimal investment to find some good spots here. One or two gets you Ishin. Let's see, what are the other key ones here? Ishin's really the key one. You could probably substitute out Ryu the Storm's Edge. It's a cool little jank card, but honestly, when we played it, we didn't really get to take advantage of its particular effect, so it's a take it or leave it thing, and that's really your call. Especially at 4 mana, you could always, kind of opt in for something different. But this deck is a blast. I can't wait for you guys to see it, and we will see you in the gameplay. Alright, our opponent is up to bat. This is an interesting land setup. I'm going to go ahead and mulligan. That is a much better set. Wish I had a little bit of black, but this will be okay for what we're trying to do. Go ahead and lead with a mountain. Opponent showing mono white and leading with a Lunarch Veteran. We could be playing a life gain deck here. And the Impassioned Order, definitely the life gain formula. Let's go double white. And there's the black mana we want to get the Adventurer down. Let's go ahead and start gaining a little bit of life here. There we go. Chorus Element, that is a big boy. Do they elect to try and kill the Nadar? Nope, just a standard chump. And that's the big girl I was hoping not to see. They are now on the threshold of becoming really out of control here. Let's go ahead and make our adventurer scary. Alright, the opponent elected not to lose the life, but if they have any other clerics, then this is gonna go bad for us. Alright, well that's still gonna be not great, but it'll be okay for the moment. We're managing to hold them off. This deck is working as promised. But that is gonna be a killer. Oof, and the whole team gets the pump. Yikes. Another cleric class coming down, and they're going to continue to go out of range. And that Voice of the Blessed is now huge. Unfortunately, we don't have any aerial blockers at the moment. But this is what you hope for. And the opponent comes back down to reality. Hopefully they not wiped out, but hopefully they whiffed on their draws. There's a land. That's one positive whiff. Oh, they may have fully whiffed. And another cleric class, so they're going to get 2 life here, which will continue to pump that Voice of the Blessed. Oh, interesting that they're not putting the counter there, because that Voice of the Blessed is only a counter or so away from becoming untouchable. Well, if it ain't broke, ladies and gentlemen, don't fix it. We're going to continue to Angel Fire Ignition and pluck away. Opponent now down to 11, so it's getting harder and harder for them to reach their objective goal of hitting 27, which pumps the field. They do have the ability to pull a card out of the graveyard, and that's going to be a huge pump. 7 health just for that. Just when you think you have it, they manage to snake another huge life gain out of the pile. And now Voice of the Blessed is huge. The opponent might actually be able to swing for lethal on this turn alone. Well, that's going to be 34 damage coming in on our total of 35. That is effectively the end of this game. And the opponent is up to 61. I don't see a way out of this, folks. Well, that's not what you wanted to run into, folks, but they just outscaled us in spite of our best efforts. Alright, we have an opponent. This is the land base we want to start with. We're going to go ahead and keep that. Not necessarily looking forward to playing a Werewolf's Pile, but with Nadar and a Reaper's Talisman, we might be able to make that work. A couple of Selfless Samurai in the mix, and this is going to become doable. Go ahead and take a quick look, see what we're dealing with there. Infernal Grasp, that's actually a worthwhile keep. And we'll go ahead and start padding our life total a little bit here. Opponent doesn't want any part of it. Well, sometimes intimidation works, I guess. Alright, we have an opponent. Liliana, Professor Onyx, whatever you want to call it. Sleeve could be mono black, which would be somewhat of a problem, but we're going to go ahead and take a keep here, being a little short on mana, which could be a risky play, but we'll see what happens. Champion of the Perished, so we're potentially facing down a zombies build here. Do we draw into a third mana or a black mana? Both would be good. Oh, that is a very good card for what they've got going on. Do we get the mana? We get a mana. We'll take that. And we'll start building up our lifelink here. Tainted Adversary, that is a very scary threat. Let's see if they elect to chump it with the Tainted Adversary. We'll take that. Keeps our life total somewhat steady, and now we can take the damage from the champion, but also block out their zombie. If we get a black mana on the next turn, we can take out the champion and roll right along. Another Tainted Adversary to the board. Actually, we don't even need the black mana. A mana would do. We'll be able to Angel Fire and Infernal Grasp, getting rid of their pump. There's the mana. I think they forget that I have Indestructible because of the Ignition. They're going to be surprised. Sorry, buddy. That's how that card works. This next turn, we're going to go ahead and Graveyard Trespasser and start taking bites out of the grave. Opponent looking like they're looking for some possible solutions here. Doesn't... Oh, and they didn't find it. All right, we have now beaten down Dimir zombies. All right, there is a new opponent. Once again, 2 mana hands, not sure how much I really want to keep them, but it does have all 3 of the colors in just 2 pieces. So we're going to go ahead and lead off with our Haunted Ridge as we don't have a 1-drop. followed up with that Bright Climb pathway on white so we can play out the Selfless Samurai and just hope that in the next turn or two we draw into that mana to get the Nadar down. If not, we'll run the same play pattern as the game against the zombies with a kick in the door. Oh, that's even better. Let's go ahead and add that and put the Triumphant Adventurer down. Show them right away what they're walking into. Alright, opponent is showing Mardu colors themselves. Not entirely certain what we're getting into with that particular foretell. When there's potential white involved, it could always be a Doomscar, so we're going to go ahead and play the safe route, put the Samurai down to be able to protect that Adventurer in the event of board wipe, and go from there. At this point, 1 damage, opponent shouldn't be worrying about anything. Oh, we're now up to 3 colors. Opponent drops Jin-Gitaxias. This is a Reanimator deck. We have to move fast. Alright, do they have the mana for it? 1 more mana, potentially, and they can bring out Jin-Gitaxias, and that is a scary thought. The Dar going down. Or is he? I hope that was fun for you. Warlock class coming down. Alright, let's rip their life total down as low as we can get it. There goes Velomachus. That actually was not a smart move on our part, as that plays right into their game plan. But with an Angel Fire Ignition on deck, nothing they're going to have is going to be big enough. But if they pull that Jin-Gitaxias out, we are in deep trouble. Return Upon the Tide, but they went Velomachus. Do they have a spell big enough to knock out Nadar? Hunt for specimens. They don't. We're going to chump right on through with the Angel Fire, and this is going to be GG. Triumphant Adventurer, as we saw in previous games, will first strike for 1 damage and then carry the rest through. This game got up and went, and looks like we're going to find that victory. With the trample on the Adventurer, they can't stop us. Ladies and gentlemen, we have found another win. This deck can get rolling in a very scary way, and I see why Jay had such a successful win run with it. Alright, we have a new opponent up to bat. That is actually a pretty good set of lands there. We're going to go ahead and get the Adventurer down early, followed by the Selfless Samurai, and then have the Infernal Grasp available for when we're ready. Opponent is showing black-blue at the moment. Let's go ahead and get our Adventurer down before they have any counter magic available. We're going to go ahead and get down Ishin on this next turn and start double triggering our dungeons, which will be incredibly useful. Hopefully they foretell here. They're not, so we're going to change the strategy up just slightly show the Selfless Samurai, see if we can dance around a Jawari, which so far we have. I think we're okay at 4 lands for now. We'll drop the Ishin on the next turn, and if the opponent plays a spell, it'll make that decision even easier. Oh, interesting. Rogues. I haven't seen them in a while. So is this a mill strategy? Or are they playing a ninja pile? That would be interesting. Oh, opponent is desperate for that 3rd mana to come down. They're taking that big damage hit. Silver Fur Master, they're pumping up their rogue pile. Oh, now I almost wish I kept on top. That's okay, we're fine to lose those. Let's go ahead and do this the smart way. This particular round, we're going to go ahead and create goblins. Give ourselves a little bit of chump in case they decide to come in with that silver fur. No need to lose the Selfless Samurai needlessly, but if it draws out more of their removal, that will be worthwhile. We will be able to protect the Triumphant Adventurer with it. Okay, hey, if you want to burn your removal on my savior, then that is fine by me. Thousand Face Shadow. Looks like they could be trying to do some ninjutsu. And we are now flooding. There's a Graveyard Trespasser. That is a worthwhile pickup. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to block the Thousand Face Shadow, which means they can get in with a very scary card, potentially. Now, what is the opponent going to do with Kaito? Do you wait to hit your plus? I guess we'll find out. Or are you going to minus and create a ninja? Draw a card, but you have to discard because you haven't attacked yet. Yes, I know something you don't know too. You just goofed. No ninjutsu for them. Opponent now down to 8. We have a good amount of damage on board, and with the Trespasser we'll be able to double exile next turn if it survives. Opponent dropping down another Soaring Thought Thief. Now they can't target the Trespasser with targeted removal. Thousand Face Shadow to the face. And there is the draw card. Did they get removal? A Merfolk Windrobber. I'm going to take that as a no. Alright, we have now some very good options available to us here. The opponent is now down to 6 life. They're going to have to make some calculated choices here, as we're going to hit them for 5 to the face. Are they going to take care of Ishin? They're leaving Ishin be. Oh, there goes the Silver Fur, though. That's going to be awesome for us. That was a bad miscalculation on our opponent's part. Unless they've got a board wipe here that I don't know about. They're going to have to attack and then hope that they can get a good draw off Kaito. Either way, Angel Fire next turn, which they don't yet know about, is going to be a near deal breaker for them. Don't know if they're breaking out the rope for this one, but they're sure taking their time to debate. Well, I mean, I know it's not as exciting for you folks at home, but we're still here, still waiting on the opponent, and they have broken out the rope. All right, first time out is about to hit the books. There it goes. They have one more timeout remaining, and then they have their standard turn phase. I think they might just be done. We may actually even be able to double cast that Angel Fire next turn just to guarantee the victory here. But again, I don't know that we're going to get that opportunity as the opponent has gone full rope. Don't know why I didn't think to give this deck a shot. If you haven't watched the JayVillain video, it will be linked in the description below, as that was the direct inspiration for this particular deck. And by inspiration, I mean it's a direct net deck, and it is a worthwhile net deck at that. Made only one minor change, as I didn't have some of the pathways, and I replaced them with the Haunted Ridge. Seems to have been the right play, as our mana is still coming out consistently on curve, and I do like having the pathways that we have as opposed to all chill land model, as it gives us the ability to go all the way through. Alright, so let's give you a pump. Well, whatever the opponent's sitting on, he is sitting on it, and again, might break out the rope again. Must be instant sorcery or flash. Not sorcery. Sorcery would have been on their phases. It's probably a flash or an instant card, potentially another rogue. But at this point, it is what it is. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, there they go. Dimir Rogues in the books. That's 2 Dimir decks down and into the next tier of Platinum, all on the back of JayVillain's genius. Alright, welcome back. This deck, I think I tried to say it in the intro, this deck performs as advertised. If you're not following JayVillainMTG on YouTube, you need to. This man is a brewing genius. This is not the first deck of his that we've run as just a straight carbon copy, or as close as we could get to it. Another one is one that I had relabeled Out of the Darkness. That was the Golgari Wolves deck that featured Sir Rolf, Cemetery Protector, and some other cool stuff. He has a really good knack for deck building when it comes to finding the balance between creatures and spells and artifacts and enchantments. So if you're looking to get yourself out of a bind, his decks tend to be very friendly to what you may already have on hand from longer sets, things that have been around a long time, and being generously gentle is, I guess, how I'll phrase that, to your wildcard situation, hoping that maybe you drew a couple if you've got some packs out of the new sets, or have just enough in the limited wildcard selection to be able to craft 1 or 2 key pieces and take a deck from something that you already had to something that is incredibly overpowered. Take a look at his channel. You know, again, we hope that you like this video, that you subscribe to the channel here as well, but we'll be a shouting point for him because he has some fantastic ideas and they are very effective. End of the day, this deck will be one that I'll continue to probably grind off camera, or if we do another sprint series like we did at the end of last season, you'll probably see this deck heavily featured as we try and grind our way towards Mythic this season. Right now, my main goal is Diamond, as I've never hit Diamond, but if we can get to Mythic, that would be spectacular, and I think a big part of it will be on the back of JayVillain's genius when it comes to how he crafts decks. So I recommend you check him out. He tends to stream every night around 11 p.m. Eastern Standard. And with that, this is Furion from the Florida Men Gaming, signing off.